Hello, and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. We all know that life is hard, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it can be wonderful all at the same time. My hope is that we can take a deep dive into self-development topics and explore life's lessons through book clubs, conversations, and interviews. And together, we can uncover the lessons that others have already learned to help us navigate this crazy, wonderful ride called life. Hello and welcome to Message in the Middle. I'm your host, Marianne, and today we're talking about what it really means to create resilience that doesn't just help you survive, but helps you rise. My guest, Jenny Evans, is a global speaker, coach, author, and organizational consultant who specializes in the chemistry of stress, confidence, and performance. Jenny blends science with soul, turning complex physiology into simple, brain-changing strategies that help people bounce back faster, make aligned choices, and feel strong from the inside out. She's the founder of Soul on Fire, a high-performance coaching community for women ready to up-level their energy, confidence, and clarity. And her work has been featured on platforms like TEDx, NPR, Fast Company, and Women's Health, just to name a few. If you've ever felt stretched thin, burned out, or like you're running on fumes, this conversation might be just the right thing you're looking for. So, hey, Jenny, hello and welcome to the show.
Hey, Marianne, it's so good to be with you and your listeners today.
Well, I'm glad you're here. And I wanted to kick off by telling you, so one of the things that really got me looking at your work was that you made this statement. It said, most people are exhausted, not just tired, but soul tired, stuck in the cycle of stress, second guessing, and feeling like they're running on empty while trying to look like they have it all together. And I went, because I can totally relate and remember a period for a very, very long time in my life when that was me. Fortunately, I've gotten out of that. But I agree with you that I think most people are stuck in that doing everything, being everything, handling all the things at work, at home, scheduling, maybe even taking care of parents.
Yeah.
It's just a lot.
Yep.
And I think that you're right. And they get stuck in this cycle of stress. And sometimes I think don't even realize it. So I was hoping you could start us out by sort of breaking down how that state of stress is less about psychology and mindset and more about chemistry, because I know that's one of the things you really like to talk about.
Yeah, I'm with you, Marianne. We've all been there at one time or another. And, sometimes it hits us fast and furious. And other times it's just this slow, gradual thing that we don't really notice until seemingly, quote unquote, out of nowhere, we hit that tipping point and we're like, what happened? But when you turn around and you're like, yes, I can see how that probably happened. But so much of stress and feelings of burnout don't actually start as psychology problems. They start as chemistry problems. And it's those chemical changes that occur that then start to affect us psychologically. So I think, first of all, everybody needs to know if you experience stress, if you experience burnout, if you experience overwhelm, there is nothing wrong with you. That is a very human experience. I don't think you should judge yourself as far as, I can't hack it. I should be able to think my way out of this. I should be able to change my mindset. But everything that happens to us that's negative or unexpected, all of the change that we've all been through the last 6 years, that triggers our stress response, which produces adrenaline and cortisol, which then puts our primitive caveman brain at large and in charge. And that primitive caveman brain is very emotional. It's very fear-based. It's very negative, pessimistic. It loves to blow things out of proportion. That's that that internal voice of the self-doubt, the imposter syndrome, I suck. Well, it seems like everybody else has everything together. Those chemical changes also create things like insomnia, food cravings. And I'm here to tell you, those are not cravings for broccoli. Um, it changes, our memory, our focus produces brain fog. So if we're only ever thinking about burnout and stress from a cognitive perspective of, well, I just need to learn some better stress management techniques, you're always treating the chemical side effect. So I'm really all about, let's help you to optimize and change your chemistry first. And then you don't have so many of those negative psychological side effects to deal with. And then we can tackle things from a psychological perspective.
I like that. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what that looks like. So how do we tackle it from that perspective, or start to tackle it from that perspective?
Yeah. One of the most simple things is cortisol is the major stress hormone, and it's involved in our fight or flight response. I'm going to use fight or flight response and stress response interchangeably. But what was the fight or flight response? It was fighting or it was fleeing. It was this short burst of intense physical activity. And what I've discovered in looking through all of the peer-reviewed science-backed research is one of the fastest ways to rid our body of cortisol is a micro burst of 30 to 60 seconds of intense physical activity, which mimics that fight or flight response. But what that does biologically is it burns off the cortisol, and then it stimulates the production of what I'm just going to call it your bliss molecules, things like endorphins and dopamine and endocannabinoids and human growth hormone. There's an entire pharmacy for stress that we have inside of us that we can access at any time. So when I'm saying a microburst, this could be 30 seconds of jumping jacks as fast as you can, or fast high knees, or maybe doing some squat jumps or some burpees, or taking the stairs instead of the elevator. That if it elevates your heart rate or if it challenges your muscles, it's mimicking that fighting or fleeing. And that's one of the fastest, most effective ways to reset the chemistry, not only of your body, but also of your brain.
So that sounds great if I'm in a situation where I can do that. What if I'm, I don't know, I'm in the middle of a meeting at work and I can't just stand up and start doing jumping jacks. Well, maybe, but
well, why not?
It depends what you do for a job, right? So
here's the good news, bad news. So every time cortisol is produced, it stays in your system for about 2 to 3 hours afterwards. So yeah, the reality is you're not always in a situation where you can just drop to the floor and start, doing something very emphatically. But when you have a moment, if you're stepping away into the bathroom, or if you can close your office door or find an empty space where literally for just that 30 seconds, if you can move your body, that still will help. So it's never too late for a microburst. It's never too early for a microburst. So do it as soon as you can, but know that you do have a window of opportunity that you can use.
So if I was to follow you around for the day, would I see you jumping into all these little microbursts of activity?
Absolutely. But it's kind of like, I've been doing this for so long, it's really built into my lifestyle, So for me, I chose to actually live in a neighborhood where I can walk and bike almost everywhere I need to go. So a couple times a day, I'm jumping on my bike. Granted, it's longer than 30 to 60 seconds, but yeah, I get up and move at least once an hour. And again, it only takes about 30 to 60 seconds. So it's not anything really huge.
Yeah. So just enough to shift perspectives and take a pause. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about people that maybe they didn't even know that they were kind of in this constant state of stress, or if they did, I guess it doesn't matter. As they start to sort of move out of that, there's sometimes a little bit of a struggle with, the who am I? I was that person. I was the doer. I was the beer. I was the always high strung, I'll say a personality on, on speed or whatever, really like turned up a notch.
Yeah.
And now I'm not. And they sort of struggle with their identity. Do you see that?
Yeah, so often. I think everybody struggles in slowing down and what that means, because our society does really reward productivity. The hustle culture, the grind culture, that your value really equals what you produce or what effect you have. One of the things that I also talk about in my audiences, my book with coaching clients, is really getting clear on your values, your beliefs, and your sense of purpose. Because when you're really clear on those things, you're also very clear on who and what should be getting your time and energy, and who and what should not, and what really matters. It's that productivity does not equal fulfillment. Those are two very, very different things. And I think they're actually inversely related, that so much of our stress comes from this hustle and constant to do when we're just doing tasks. What is this really doing? Is this making a difference? Where is the value here? What's really, in our technology jobs and a lot of cognitive jobs, you don't see a lot of direct output from the hours that you work. So where's that sense of gratification versus like we had to work with our hands and we had to grow our own food? You could see what your labor was for and why it was so important. And so really tapping into, what do I believe to be true? What do I really value? What's really important helps you to very quickly override a lot of the stories and the outside pressure and noise telling us the things that we should be doing or we're supposed to be doing, versus being clear and grounded and confident in who we are and what we're doing and why it matters.
I agree with that. I would just add, for people that are just sort of starting down this path, that it won't come overnight. It's a practice.
Yes.
And it's not linear.
Yeah.
Right? You might have these conversations and do the work and tell yourself that this is what I'm aligned with. This is what I stand for. These are the things I want to spend my time on. But you're going to have ups and downs and sort of have to really get good at that with time, I think. Tell me I'm obviously talking from my own experience, but tell me, you've worked with hundreds of thousands of people. Is that what you see as well? It's not linear and it's sort of an up and down, and it takes a lot of repeated practice.
I'm so glad that you brought this up. This is a lifelong work. It is a lifelong practice, not only for the reasons that you mentioned, but also the fact that society is always barging in with advertisement and media and television and books and podcasts telling us what we're supposed to value. And in society, it's money, it's power, it's status, it's things, it's youth. So society is always kind of telling you like, oh, I don't think you have that right. And so you have to constantly be pushing back on those outside messaging. And then to add a little bit more challenge is our sense of self and what's really important does change throughout various stages of our lives. So this is not a one and done process.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can relate to this. Anybody, when you think about, what was really important to me when I was in high school versus when I came out of college and I got my first job, versus what do I prioritize after I started a family, versus somehow I'm at that age where I'm having to take care of my parents, so purpose and values are shifting again. And so it really is this daily practice to your point. And I think we all understand that there's things that we should be doing on a daily basis. We should be brushing our teeth. We got to sleep. We should eat. We should move. But when it comes to sometimes what I refer to as, training emotionally and spiritually is just as important on a daily basis to maintain clarity, and tap into just that sense of center and focus and knowing.
I do think it's changing a little bit. I think when you talked about society and the pressures from outside, and they are for sure still there, but I feel like maybe this next generation will have it, dare I say, slightly more aligned than ours or mine did. I think they're a little more in tune with trying to keep that, I don't know, alignment to their core values and, not focus so much on the external factors as we did. I might be wrong, but I think I see a little shift. So I'm happy about that.
Me too. Well, they grew up seeing their parents, give everything to their job or go to a job that they didn't really love, but it was just a paycheck. And then to see downsizing and reshuffling of, I hate to say this, but we're really in a time in society where most companies and organizations, I'm just going to say it, they don't really care about their people. They care about the bottom line. When a business says, sorry, don't take it personal, this is a business decision, of like, I think we should also flip that of, hey, you know what? Don't take it business. This is a personal decision of this doesn't align. And my life isn't all about 60-hour work weeks and how much money I have and what my title is. Like, of course, we all need that certain amount to meet our basic needs and to create happiness. But, research shows, I think the cutoff is about $60,000, where, that's the happiness level where more money than that really does not create more happiness. That happiness is an inside job. And I think this younger generation really is catching on and learning from our mistakes.
I agree. And you're right. They have the ability to learn from what we went through. So that's always a good thing. That also adds to it. I want to switch gears for a little bit and talk about resilience. So, because they go hand in hand really, but you say that resilience is a learnable skill. And I think that most of us that have gone through any kind of major event in their life would agree. You can look backwards, you can list all the things you learned out of that hard or challenging time. But what if you were talking to the next generation or your younger self that haven't gone through something, don't have hindsight? So what would you say? What do you tell them? What's the way to start building resilience before the major life events happen? Because they will. We both know they will.
Yeah. Discomfort is your best friend. So, again, approaching this from both a performance psychology and an exercise physiology perspective, how we build our capacity is that our systems, both our brain and our bodies, are very, very adaptable depending on the stimulus that we're exposed to. So just a simple example is if I need to increase the capacity of my biceps, well, how do I do that? Well, I have to strategically expose them to stress and actually just a little bit more stress than what they're currently capable of handling. And then when I do that, that puts microscopic tears in the muscle fibers. And then it's the following 24 to 48 hours that my body goes in, repairs the tears, and leaves them in a slightly stronger state. So it's really, building resilience is really a two-part system of exposure to stress followed by recovery, because recovery is where the growth occurs. And I will tell you, there are times when we can feel like we're in control, and we can gradually step into a situation where we're like, okay, this is just a little beyond my comfort zone, but I'm going to do this because this is how I grow. And then there's other times where life just smacks you and shoves you into the deep end, which is why it's so important to do the training when we can, to be able to have that resilience, and I don't know. And Marianne, what are your thoughts on this idea that strong generations raise weak generations, and then it goes back up again that weak generations raise strong generations? Meaning, my generation, I think strong, resilient generation, we didn't have a lot. Okay, I'm 53. We didn't have a lot that went wrong in our lives. We were pretty good. And then we became helicopter parents, and we wanted to do everything for our kids. And that was doing our kids a disservice, because we didn't want them to have to deal with problems. We wanted to protect them from, being upset or discomfort. But oh my goodness, that was not the best thing from the long-term strategy of our kids, ourselves. We need those moments that push us beyond our capacity so that we can grow and we can learn.
In general, I agree with that and I'm 56, so right there with you. I agree with our cycle and the cycle after us. But if I look to our parents or the generation before us, it's less black and white for me, because I do think they were a strong generation also. So I don't think they raised a weak generation, because that would be us, and we were a strong generation. So I don't know if it always works like that. I also think, I haven't given this a lot of thought until right now that you asked me, but I also think there's other factors at play. Like if I look at our children, the generation below us, and how they're raising their children, I see a lot more emphasis on mental health and, these what they call gentle parenting, but it's just more in line with being aware of letting kids be who they are and understand mental health and have open conversations instead of. So I don't know, are they building a weaker generation, or are they building a more resilient generation? From what I see, I think actually when I look at my grandchildren, I think a more resilient generation, but I don't know. It hasn't played out yet. So I don't know if I can answer that, but I do think you're spot on with the way that our generation raised their children. And of course we're generalizing, but yeah, I do think we tried to do a little too much, and it was not in their best interest in the long haul of it all.
Yeah. It came from a place of love. And also,
of course,
you don't learn this until afterwards, when you start seeing of like, wow, my child doesn't handle conflict well, or, they have an extreme reaction when something seemingly what I perceive to be small of, I don't know, again, I'm sure because you're so into this of the generation now where, like, what's the difference between like, oh, I'm feeling stressed or I've had trauma? I think the word trauma is just being thrown around, overused, like day-to-day stress, even like major life stressors. Some of that is genuinely trauma, but there's a lot of that where you're like, well, that's also just kind of the stress of being alive and being a human. And what really creates, I don't want to say that stress is a good thing, but it really can be a good thing. It's what teaches us the most.
I think if nothing else, it's not black and white, and it's complicated, right?
Yes,
I think it's a complicated topic.
Yes.
But I mean, that's the good news. I think that for folks that are, like us and like the people that we like to hang out with, they're lifelong learners. And, you do the best you can, and then you continue to learn and grow and do better. And that's all you can do. So
yeah,
that's what I see. But I don't know the answer to that one. I'm curious because speaking of, the kind of people we hang out with and work with and talk to, What do you see in common, or do you see any major things in common between people that are highly resilient, that have built that ability to bounce back? What do they have in common that stands out to you?
I think one of the major things that they have in common is they understand that it's important to create balance. And I'm not talking about work-life balance, but creating a sustainable balance between stress and recovery. And they understand the importance of energy out with energy in, because energy is a finite resource and it's metabolized in the human body. And if all we do all day is just perform and give and go and do all the things, we're giving a lot of energy. And if we are not renewing our energy periodically throughout the day, we can't sustain high levels of performance. And it's not about waiting until the end of the day to recover energy when you're already burnt out or bankrupt, or on the weekends, that they understand that rest and recovery is not a luxury. It doesn't mean that you are weak. It's actually strategic from a biological, physiological perspective, that you can't just grind through and expect your brain to be at its best. You can't grind through and expect your body to have optimal energy and performance.
That one, I'll tell you, that one was such a hard one for me. And if I'm being completely honest, it still is hard for me, though I do it. Rest, taking time to just chill and really not do anything, not even, the old me, handful of years ago, sitting down on the couch for 10 minutes, or it would just be like, I could be doing 27 things. Like, what am I doing here? Blah, blah. It was really, really, really hard. And I see you shaking your head. For those that can't see, it's a thing, and it's really hard to let go of that. And I'm going to use the word, it's uncomfortable. It's
1,000.
Right? So
yeah. Oh, it could be so painful.
So painful.
Especially with high performers. And you talked about like that type A personality. That personality, more is always better. And speaking for myself, I'm always like, the rules of the universe don't apply to me. As somebody who is a stress expert, I'm like, well, I know, but I practice my resilience so I can, and then again, out of nowhere, stress will like sneak up on me. And I'm like, what the heck just happened? Jenny, you're human, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And you can't be going nonstop. You can't always, with that growth mindset, it's always like, I want to best myself. I want to improve over myself. But there is a limit and there is a balance that I also struggle with. There is almost like there's an art and then there's the science. I feel like the science is the easy part. It's that art. It's the practice of it where you're like, how many times am I going to have to learn this lesson over and over and over again?
Yeah. And I do think, I'm glad you admitted it too, because I do think that it's another thing that you have to practice, and sometimes you have to kind of force it sounds horrible, but force yourself through it. Just no, I'm going to sit here and enjoy this half hour and not do anything and not think about it. And you're going to think about 72,000 things, but that's okay. You get better and better at it with practice. But I do think sometimes you have to force yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Kind of a funny story, like the timing of this, the irony is not lost on me. So exercise is a big, important part of my life. Like, I want to live as long as I can, as healthy as I can. So as I'm getting older, I switched my exercise routine to try to add as much muscle mass as I just possibly can. And so I've been doing much harder workouts, still getting recovery. But last week I started noticing, I was like, I just can't lift as much as I was, and I'm not recovering, and I was tired. And there were 2 days in the gym where I'm literally standing in there like, what am I even doing? Why does this even matter? And then I just started really spiraling of like, I'm going to get old anyway. who cares? What's the point of this thing? Like, look at his skin's getting all saggy. What am I, and then okay, there are 3 scientific definitions of burnout. Okay, reduced energy and fatigue, check. Negativity and cynicism, check. And then reduced performance and efficacy, check. And I was like, how about that? And so I was like, okay, Jenny, you're going to take a week off of working out next week. And for me, I know there might be listeners that are like, oh, I wish I had that problem. But whatever, you know what? My working out is somebody's lack of boundaries. It's somebody's people pleasing. It's somebody's overdoing it, of having to sit in the discomfort of pulling back and listening and noticing when your body is sending you the signals of it's too much. We've hit the breaking point, and now we're at diminishing returns. And if we don't stop, if we don't get some high quality recovery, it doesn't matter how hard we push or what we do. It's not going to end up with better results.
Really, truly is all an ongoing journey of evolution.
Oh, yeah.
Too bad there wasn't a switch.
Well, okay. Like, if we could have that primitive caveman brain just like completely taken out, that would be very helpful. That switches into survival mode, is negative, is pessimistic. But that part of our brain has been so essential for our survival. But understanding there's that advanced brain that understands the logic, the reasoning, the importance. And then we've got this primitive brain that's highly activated by stress, by change, by the unknown. And it's almost like we have, these 2 different parts of our brain with their pros and cons. And all of us on a daily basis are having this almost like, tug of war between these 2 different parts of the brain. And that is biology, it's neurobiology, it's chemistry. It's not you, it's not me, it's biology.
Yeah. I think the cool thing is, and it was an example of it, but once when you know what's going on, you know that these conditions exist, you know that you're sort of going to have that, I'll say split personality, somebody don't come at me, but sort of you can feel like that for a minute inside your head, right? But once you know that, you can use it to your advantage to identify it. So when you did it, in that spot, you said, wait a minute, what's going on here? And that's when you take the pause and you take a minute to reflect on it. And you can start stepping out of it, but you have to know it, you have to learn it, you have to recognize it, and then you can start conditioning yourself to make different decisions than you would have in the past. But it all starts with learning about it. So it's a good thing once you can do that, I think.
I like to call my primitive caveman brain Sneaky Pete, so every time I have like a weird thought or I do something not aligned, I was like, there's Sneaky Pete again.
Yeah. And I've heard somebody say before, like, it's okay if they're in the car with you, but don't let Sneaky Pete drive. Yeah. And that's a great way to look at it. I think, he's going to be in the passenger seat always. Yeah. Just don't let him drive, right? Let him be there, but don't let him take over. So it's hard, but it can be done with practice. Yeah. It all takes practice. Yeah. So I want to ask you, what would your message be if you could only leave one message with women in midlife? What would you want them to hear?
Can I do 2 things? 2 little ones.
No, keep breaking the rules. Yes, of course you can.
Okay. It's not you. It's your chemistry and your biology. And that you don't have to do anything major, unattainable. I share a series of micro strategies to optimize your chemistry and your biology. Just these small things that you can do in 30 to 60 seconds, because you're already overwhelmed. You're already overscheduled. You're already overbooked. You're already overwhelmed. The last thing that you need is the pressure to do something big. And that actually just creates more stress. And then we just cling more to habit and routine. So, when it comes to sleep, when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to movement, just pick one micro, small thing that you can do consistently that seems so easy, where you're like, well, that's just silly. That's exactly the point. If it's so silly, you'll be able to do it consistently. And that's what moves the needle over the long term than these big, difficult, overwhelming things that we can only do once in a while. And so give yourself the grace and the space to just step into the micro. What's one small thing that I can do consistently? And consistency beats that flash in the pan every single time.
I love that you said so small that it seems silly, because I do think that most of us, all lean towards I have to do something bigger, or I have to do something impactful. And the silly things get thrown out the window because they seem silly. Mm-hmm. So I just want to hang there for 1 second. Can you give us a couple of examples of things that might seem super silly, but somebody could do?
Yeah, for sure. So sleep is the number one tool we have for recovery. Vast majority of people struggle with sleep. Some micro strategies that you could use. You could set a bedtime alarm to just whatever. Maybe for you, that's 8 p.m. at night. That's that trigger of like, okay, I'm going to start to disconnect from work. I'm going to start dimming the lights. I'm going to start relaxing. I'm going to start preparing myself for bed. You could do 60 seconds of a brain dump before bed. Get pen and paper. All of the mental workload that you're carrying, the to-do list, the remembering, the things that you're stressed out about, just getting those down on paper so that if you wake up in the night, your brain isn't racing. Nutrition, we didn't even talk about this, like cortisol makes us reach for, caffeine, alcohol, nicotine, junk food, processed food. That also actually increases the stress. So now we've got this negative stress cycle. So just trying to choose foods that are higher in protein and fiber and have some healthy fats. That just helps to really equalize blood glucose, your chemistry, as well as a consistent source of energy throughout the day. Do one 60-second microburst. Drink one more glass of water than what you normally do. Do 10 push-ups every day, and then pretty soon you can do 15 push-ups every single day. A lifestyle, when you think about it, a lifestyle is an accumulation of all of these small micro things that we do consistently on a daily basis. It's not the one thing that we do. It's all of these little things.
Yeah. And I would say don't do them all at once. So all those things that you listed were great.
One thing.
Yeah. And what do you suggest for people when you tell them that? When you tell them to pick one, is it one for a week, one for 2 weeks, one for a month? Do you give them a time frame before they add their next?
I don't, because I think it really depends on what is the item that you're trying to do and how easy did you actually make it. If you can make it really, really easy within a couple of days, if you've really integrated it, if you habit stacked it onto something else, or if it was a one-time action step where I'm just going to set an alarm for bed, then you can add another micro strategy in there. And this, we're playing the long-term game here, So you've got time, give yourself space. And again, changing too much too soon triggers the stress response. Sneaky Pete, primitive caveman brain, he's going to fight change tooth and nail. And so if we don't get Sneaky Pete on board with the program, nobody's getting on board with the program. So biologically, you have to make it simple.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That is so true. So true. Well, this has been a fabulous conversation. Where can people find you most active?
Yeah. So my website, jennyevans.com, hundreds of videos on YouTube, but also I have a tool for everyone that you can download for free. If you go to jennyevans.com/yourcortisolreset, I have a cortisol reset protocol of just some very simple things that you can do to optimize and change your chemistry that will also help you with your psychology. Just small things that you can do in the moment, after the moment, if you can't stop what you're doing. But again, all science-backed, simple things that you can do to just minimize the cortisol, access that pharmacy for stress, and get those good, delicious bliss molecules.
I love it. We'll put that in the show notes too, in case folks are busy and they weren't able to capture that. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a great conversation.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Marianne.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of Message in the Middle. I hope you found something in this conversation that reminded you that you're not alone and that midlife isn't about winding down. It's about waking up. You're not done. You're just becoming. If this episode speaks to you at all, please share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And if you're enjoying the show, I'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to leave a review. It really helps other women find this community and this podcast. Until next time, take care of yourself.